MAGA wanted Hillary Clinton dragged in. They wanted the spectacle. They wanted the headline. They wanted the image. They wanted a Democrat forced to answer questions about Jeffrey Epstein under oath. And for a brief moment, they got it. But what happened next wasn't the triumphant exposure many expected. It was internal backlash. Because the leak they cheered, the photo meant to humiliate, ended up detonating inside their own movement. And at the center of it was Congresswoman Lauren Boebert, alongside a right-wing media figure eager to amplify it. Before we break down why MAGA supporters suddenly turned on one of their own, and why this moment exposed deeper fractures inside the movement, you need to understand what actually happened behind closed doors. Hillary Clinton was called to testify before the House Oversight Committee regarding what she knew about Jeffrey Epstein. Not publicly, not in a televised hearing, behind closed doors. That detail matters. Because, according to reporting, Clinton herself requested that the testimony be made public. She wanted it out in the open. Republicans declined. They wanted it private. The optics of that alone are complicated. For years, the demand from conservative media has been transparency around Epstein, full exposure, public accountability. But here, when a high-profile Democrat sat down to answer questions under oath, the proceeding was structured as closed door. And then, mid-testimony, the image appeared online. A photo of Hillary Clinton seated before the Oversight Committee, testifying. The caption declared this was the first time she had to answer real questions about Epstein. The source credited, Representative Lauren Boebert. Let's pause there. A closed-door hearing, a live leak, a sitting member of Congress providing the image. That is not routine. It is not procedural. It is not insignificant. And the reaction was immediate. Democrats objected. They argued that releasing images from a private deposition violated committee rules. The hearing was temporarily suspended. For a moment, it appeared the entire proceeding might derail. Now watch how quickly the narrative shifted. The leak was intended to embarrass Hillary Clinton, to project discomfort, to suggest she was under pressure. But instead, many observers, including some on the right, began asking a different question. Why jeopardize the hearing at all? Because if the goal was accountability, the priority should have been completion. If the goal was exposure, the priority should have been testimony on record. Instead, the focus became the stunt, and that is where the backlash began. Benny Johnson, right during the actual testimony, tweets out the first image of Hillary Clinton testifying under oath about Jeffrey Epstein of the Republican Oversight Committee. This is the first time Hillary has had to answer real questions about Epstein. Clinton does not look happy. Photo provided by Representative Lauren Boebert. Notice the tone. This is the first time Hillary has had to answer real questions. She does not look happy. It was performance. It was narrative construction. It was an attempt to transform a still photograph into proof of guilt. But here's where the strategy faltered. Because the Epstein files do not implicate only Democrats. They do not draw neat partisan lines. The names associated with Epstein span political affiliations, industries, and power centers, including, notably, references involving Donald Trump himself. That reality complicates the partisan framing, and many grassroots conservatives know it. They understand that elite corruption, if that is the issue, is not party exclusive. So when the leak risked halting testimony altogether, some MAGA supporters grew frustrated. Not at Hillary Clinton, at Boebert, and at those amplifying the stunt. Online comments reflected concern that the leak might sabotage proceedings. Why didn't you wait until it was done? Now they've stopped the hearing. That reaction reveals something deeper. For a segment of the movement, the Epstein issue is not about scoring points against Democrats. It is about systemic accountability. If accountability is the objective, theatrics that jeopardize testimony are counterproductive. That tension between spectacle and substance sits at the heart of this controversy. Lauren Boebert has built a brand on confrontation, on defiance, on provocation. Those tactics energize audiences. They generate headlines. They dominate social feeds. But oversight hearings operate under rules. Closed-door depositions exist to preserve process integrity. When those rules are broken, even strategically, it invites procedural backlash. And in this case, it shifted the story away from Hillary Clinton's answers and toward Republican conduct. That is a strategic miscalculation. Now zoom out. The Republican argument has often been straightforward. If you appear in the Epstein files, you should testify. Transparency demands it. But that principle, if applied consistently, cannot stop at political opponents. It must extend universally. That is where partisan framing becomes fragile. Because the moment accountability appears selective, credibility erodes. And credibility is everything in investigations involving elite misconduct. The backlash inside MAGA circles wasn't necessarily sympathy for Hillary Clinton. It was frustration that an opportunity, a rare opportunity for sworn testimony, was nearly disrupted by a self-inflicted controversy. Performance overshadowed process. That distinction matters. In politics, there is always a temptation to win the moment rather than secure the outcome. A viral photo can generate clicks. A completed deposition generates record. The latter is slower, less glamorous, more consequential. Now consider Hillary Clinton's posture in this scenario. She reportedly wanted the testimony public. She did not resist appearing. She did not decline to answer questions. That undercuts the narrative of evasion. And when the leak portrayed her as visibly uncomfortable, many observers simply saw a person testifying under oath. Not a confession, not a meltdown, just a witness. Which brings us to the structural question beneath the noise. What is the purpose of congressional oversight? Is it exposure for exposure's sake? Or is it evidence gathering? Because if it is evidence gathering, maintaining procedural integrity is paramount. Closed-door sessions are not inherently suspicious. They are common in sensitive investigations. They protect testimony from grandstanding. When a member undermines that framework midstream, it invites scrutiny, even from allies. This episode also reveals a fracture inside conservative media strategy. There are those who treat every development as partisan ammunition. And there are those who view certain issues, particularly Epstein, as beyond partisanship. When the two impulses collide, backlash follows. That collision happened here. Lauren Boebert's involvement transformed what could have been a methodical examination into a spectacle. And spectacle, by nature, is unpredictable. For a movement that has demanded accountability from elites, the question now becomes consistency. If accountability applies to one side, does it apply to all? If leaks are justified to expose Democrats, are they justified when Republicans are implicated? Principles tested selectively rarely survive intact. And that is perhaps why this moment blew up in the way it did. Not because Hillary Clinton was shielded, but because the stunt risked undermining the very hearing MAGA supporters wanted. Stripped of rhetoric, stripped of memes, stripped of partisan framing, the core tension is simple. Is the goal truth, or is the goal narrative dominance? Because those are not always aligned. Truth requires patience. Narrative dominance rewards immediacy. Lauren Boebert chose immediacy. Some of her own supporters preferred patience. That divergence is telling. It signals a movement wrestling with its own priorities. Do you maximize viral impact, or do you safeguard investigative leverage? Those are different strategies. And in high-stakes oversight involving figures connected to Jeffrey Epstein, strategic discipline matters. The irony is stark. A leak intended to showcase Democratic discomfort ended up spotlighting Republican infighting. A moment designed to embarrass Hillary Clinton generated criticism of a MAGA lawmaker instead. That is political blowback in real time. And it raises a final structural question. If movements built on anti-elite accountability fracture when confronted with bipartisan implications, what does that reveal about their internal cohesion? Because the Epstein issue does not belong neatly to left or right. It belongs to a broader concern about power, access, and abuse. Attempting to compress that into a single-party narrative invites tension. We are now watching that tension surface, not between parties, within one. And in politics, internal fractures often speak louder than external attacks. The leak was supposed to be a moment of triumph. Instead, it became a moment of introspection. And perhaps that is the most revealing outcome of all.